transition into another love movie. This one's a little different. This is Sita Ramam, and this came out in theaters just recently. Em actually got the opportunity to go and watch. She had to make a little bit of a drive, but nonetheless, this one came out in theaters. And Em, I'm going to hand it to you to kind of introduce it.
Well, actually, this is a Telugu movie, and I had to also read it like you do normally. But hey, I've been reading so many Korean movies. I'm a pro. Literally, I love Korean shows. And this one, coming back to Sita Ramam, it's a love story across not generations, but across two time periods, one in the 60s and one in the 80s. So it's a story of Ram, which is the handsome Dulquer Salmaan. You know, Shreya and I have loved. I mean, when we see DQ, we call him DQ. The entire fandom calls him DQ. When it's a DQ movie, it's a DQ movie. So you got to go watch it because the guy is just makes your heart beat. He's
Makes
up
the
on a
whole
hot
list.
list, guys. He is, and so this is a story of him as Ram, who's a lieutenant in the Indian Army, and he is alone, and he writes to a radio channel, and they ask their listeners, okay, this guy's alone here in Kashmir, and he's stationed here. So if you want to write to him, we'd really welcome it because he's lonely. So he gets a letter from a girl called Sita, and and she actually writes to him saying, "Oh, how can you be alone when I'm here for you? I'm your wife." So and he doesn't even know who she is. So he travels in search of her. And this is the 1960s, so the entire, they actually dated to 1960s. And but what happens is the movie travels then to 1980s, and the question that the movie asks us is, did they actually meet? Did Sita really accept Ram's love? And who is Sita? And what happened that hindered their love, and why? There is a woman from Pakistan who's played by, her name is Afreen, and she's played by Rashmika Mandanna, who everybody knows. She's an amazing actress. And she comes to give Sita a letter written by Ram, and she comes from Pakistan. So how does Ram know Afreen? And this entire onioning of this entire story as to what happened is a story of Sita Ramam. Now, I have to tell you that Lakshmi, it's Mrunal Thakur's debut in Telugu cinema. And of course, everybody knows Dulquer Salmaan is Dulquer Salmaan. So this is a story of unexplored, how love is. They fell in love through a letter, and she called him his wife, but are they destined to be together? And that's what unravels through the two periods, till Afreen comes with a letter from Pakistan. She's a Pakistan origin student who arrives in India from London. So not only is this a love story, but there's a bigger element to it, where they talk about religion, and they talk about two nations that have a common history, and literally the message seems to be, towards the end of the movie, it's like, it's not wrong to love your country, but you don't need to harbor hatred for another country just because you love your country, right? And I think that kind of comes out really well.
And we just kind of gave a brief review of the movie Sita Ramam, which came out in theaters. This is a great love story of two people in Kashmir, the lady writing to a man from Pakistan who's lonely, based in Kashmir. And so we're going to keep talking about this. Em, you were indicating that towards the end of this movie, there was kind of this message that, it's okay to love your country, but not necessarily to insinuate hate against those from others. So I really kind of want to dive deep into this and, see from your point of view, like where in the movie were they giving this message, and was it delivered well? Do you think it really hit home like a good and true message, or do you think they were missing some important things that would have made it even more powerful?
So I think they appropriately handled it throughout the movie, because when Afreen comes from London, she is a woman of Pakistani descent. but she comes with a certain notion, and that notion kind of ratifies itself at some points and doesn't ratify. She gets the love back. So while the movie's going on and she's trying to figure where, she's trying to find Sita because she had a letter for Sita, right, from Ram. So when all of that is going on, she is helped by a friend who's local, and she goes to Hyderabad to find him, where her friend is. So then that process of, it's woven into the story through the movie. It's not one single incident, or it's not two single incidents. It's just the progression is pretty natural. So it's a well-written story. Of course, the story is directed pretty well. This, by the way, the director of this movie is Raghavapudi, and Hanu Raghavapudi has really kept the tempo going with the integration of all these elements.
And let's dive a little deeper into that too, because a lot of times we watch these movies that have either dual timelines, or they go back in time. A lot of times they come back in the future. There was definitely a movie a week ago that's going to my mind whenever I'm hearing this, but this one seemed to do this dual timeline very well. So kind of talk a little bit about that, and let's just hear some of these technical elements that really made this to get you a little teary-eyed.
No, true. I think it's been done pretty well, and you don't really feel the two periods of time, the 60s and, of course, the 80s, because number one, the clothing and, they've kind of dated the two periods pretty well. So all the props to costumes, production design, costumes for Sheetal Sharma, and production design Sunil Babu. Art direction is really amazing. Art direction is by Vaishnavi Reddy and Faisal Khan. And they actually contribute pretty well to the back and forth that the movie takes you in. But within that back and forth, there's so much unonioning. So they've actually hooked you with the story. So what exactly happened that Ram didn't get to see that? The meet. So you got your hook in very early. And now that you got your hook in, it's just the unraveling, as I said, unonioning of this entire story, because you're peeling one layer after another, and you're going back in timeline and connecting an incident in the timeline to another thing that's happening right now when Afreen is looking for Sita, and she's trying to figure out who is Sita and where is she. So all of this happens in a very paced moment. So you really don't feel the back and forth so much, and it's back and forth because the dating of two eras, the 20 years apart, 20 years apart, they dated it very well with clothes and with makeup. Mrunal has the winged eyeliner, and the clothes are loose for the 60s clothes for DQ. So I think that till the intermission that happens, and after the intermission, the story completely changes. So I'm not going to give you spoilers, but yes, this is a love story that gets you hooked, and it's a very emotional love story that will. I mean, I cry. Okay, I need to watch a Shah Rukh Khan movie that I watched 50 times over. I'll be sitting there and crying. I literally will be.
So, and before we give them the song, let's give them our take. As someone who went to the theater, are we recommending you go and buy a ticket?
Absolutely. It's a DQ movie. It's well worth your money. It's well worth your time. You will completely enjoy the chemistry between Sita and Ram here in the movie. And, it's kind of they've carried the story of the Ramayana, which is a Hindu scripture, Hindu scripture of Lord Rama, the story of Lord Rama and his wife Sita. They've carried that as a parallel in this movie. While talking about the bigger things, because Afreen is literally trying to make sure that Ram found Sita. So I loved it.
Perfect.
Definitely watch. We